Hello everyone, let's move on to the second unit from this lesson. While explaining the impact of these two limitations, I will also explain the interactivity features each device can provide. Let's move on to the second unit from this lesson.
While explaining the impact of these two limitations, I also explain the interactivity features each device can provide and the design method of the interactive interface. Nowadays, personal computer is no longer the only thing in our life. There are many other devices, for example, smartphones, tablets, or TV sets. In the future, there will be more devices in our lives. The user interface includes two elements, page scrolling and format design. Physical constraints such as device, user screen distance, method of use, hand-holding method, screen size, aspect ratio, direction of the long side, and soft constraints such as text or image-based constraints will have a profound impact on the user interface. Convenience in use is similarly constrained by the two limitations mentioned above. In the past, personal computers were the main information storage device, but nowadays, the devices have become more diverse and complex, and smartphones and tablets belong to this category. Each device is different in size and mode of input. The future direction of development is expected to be more diverse. Faced with increasingly diverse devices due to variations in device size, purpose, input modes, user screen distance, or even the direction of the screen, different characteristics emerge. This demonstrates the multitude of states that the diversity of devices presents. Despite the differences in computing speed and operating system, the physical factors affecting interface design are basically the same, including screen size, user screen distance, screen direction, and input mode. First, let's talk about the screen size. The size and shape of the screen is fixed for each device. This is one of the important factors affecting interface design. Computers allow users to adjust the size and shape of the browser on the screen. However, almost all devices other than computers require full-screen browsing for web pages. What impact does this fixed page size and shape have on interface design? If the distance between the user and the page is the same, the larger the page size of the device, the more elements and information can be placed on the page. This implies that interface design has a higher degree of freedom. Devices such as smartphones with smaller screens have limited layout and less available space. There is almost no room to place extra elements. After the size, let's talk about the user screen distance. The user screen distance is one of the most important factors affecting the amount of information displayed, just as important as the page size. The farther the user is from the screen, in order for the information to be clearly readable, the larger the area on the screen needs to be. This is independent of screen size. In other words, the distance from the screen and amount of information are inversely proportional. The further away the distance, the larger the text must be in order to be legible. Conversely, the closer the distance from the screen, the more amount of information can be accommodated. Another way to increase the amount of displayed information is by improving the resolution. With the same sized area, higher resolution allows for a greater amount of information to be displayed. In theory, doubling the resolution would result in a two-fold increase in displayed information, and tripling the resolution would correspond to 3 times the amount of displayed information. The following chart shows the optimal reading distances between users and various devices. Under the premise of a fixed distance between a user and the screen, there is still a limit to the amount of information that can be displayed, because when the text becomes too small, users will be unable to read it. Distance from the screen has a greater impact on the legibility of images, graphics, and text compared to resolution. The farther the user is from the screen, the larger the images, graphics, and text must be, and conversely, the closer the user is, the smaller these elements should be. Even though increasing the resolution can make the text and images clearer with more precise details, Handheld touchscreen devices are restricted by the range of wrist movement, which becomes the distance between the user and the screen. Computers, on the other hand, are operated with a mouse, allowing users to stay further away from the screen. If a remote control is used, this distance will be even greater.
Therefore, the distance between users and the screens of various devices should be limited within a certain range. Being too close or too far doesn't allow for clear reading of content or smooth operation.
Therefore, the distance between the user and the screen must be considered in the design scheme. 3. The influence of screen direction. When the screen is not square, there are two directions, horizontal and vertical. The screen orientation affects the direction of screen scrolling and the presentation of application content. The larger the aspect ratio of the screen, the more significant the impact. Although there are many factors that influence the direction of screen scrolling, if we only consider the screen direction, it is worth considering whether scrolling along a longer side of the screen may be more practical. In practical application, different applications should have different scrolling directions. For example, data presented in the form of lists, such as contacts and song lists, are more suitable for vertical scrolling on the screen. On the other hand, maps are better displayed horizontally. So, should we design it vertically or horizontally? Design a vertical or horizontal interface when a single direction is completely appropriate. When a single direction is perfectly appropriate, when it's fixed in a single direction. Design interfaces that can be used in both vertical and horizontal directions, when both directions are equally practical, when there is not much difference between the two directions, when the nature of interface changes depending on the direction. Well, due to the limited time, we will continue to explain the remaining topics on scrolling direction and input modes.
At the end of this class, let's briefly talk about how to utilize white space effectively on this page.
Sometimes people tend to overcrowd a web page by adding too much content onto a single page, resulting in a cluttered appearance. So it is necessary to use white space to distinguish the presence of elements and to minimize the visual barriers between elements. By using white space, we can easily create visual differentiation between interconnected but distinct elements, such as form items, buttons, and paragraphs. This approach not only enhances visual recognition but also gives users a sense of cleanliness and tidiness. Look at the picture on the right. It uses a card-like design to separate buttons from buttons and form items from form items. As a result, the overall page appears full and very clean. This layout is quite interesting, resembling magazine design. Despite the presence of multiple images of varying sizes, the overall page maintains a stylish, clean, and professional look. From these images, we can see the necessity of having a certain distance between form items and form items, as well as between content and content. The specific amount of spacing should be determined based on the nature of your content. How to utilize white space effectively is an art that can only be improved through continuous design practice. Besides the design of text and images, white space is also an indispensable element in page layout. All white space is purposeful and serves a clear intention in shaping the spatial composition of a page.
That's all for today's. As homework, I would like you all to upgrade the pages based on what you have learned in class. Here are the tasks.
1. Select 2 pages for optimization by learning how to utilize white space. 2. Enhance the layout design by considering the user screen distance aspect. 3. Adjust the screen scrolling direction based on the different page content.